And if you can see the screen, can you type a Y again? Very good, very good. Thank you. Okay, guys. Yeah, so there is the question panel, and I'm going to keep that open for the whole time. If I don't get to your question right away, don't worry, I've got a lot of screens going on here. I will try and look back at this question panel as we go. And let's just bring this up. Okay, so we're going to get started. Welcome everybody. Today's topic is EdgeRater for HGSI users. I'm assuming most people on here are high growth stock investor, HGSI software users. If not, that's okay. You will probably learn something as well. If you are, then I'm assuming you also own EdgeRater software. And if you don't own EdgeRater software and you're in HGSI, then it's still good to look at this, because you'll find how the combination of the two programs can be very powerful. This today is really going to be about, if you do own both products, is about how to get them set up to work as seamlessly as possible, to make things very easy for you, the best settings to make, and the templates that you can use if once you have that integration set up. So we're going to talk about that. There is a handout I prepared. You can probably see the handouts pane in your GoToMeeting. There is a handout. It's a PDF file, and it's basically I put together a bunch of screenshots about basically how to set up HGSI and EdgeRater to work together. And that is also on my blog. So if you can't see the handout, you can go to the blog page, which is at edgerater.com/blog. And the title of the blog post is EdgeRater for HGSI users, which is the same title as this webinar. And there's quite a lot of information in here. I tried to get a screenshot of all of the important steps on the integration. A lot of these things you only have to do one time, the very first time you do the setup. And from then on, settings are remembered. Next time you go in and try and do the same thing, you don't have to enter all the different settings, but this just goes through all of the actual details so that you know exactly what's going on. So the PDF is available. You can go to the blog if you can't see the PDF. Now we have quite a lot to get through today, so I'm going to actually do some of these steps to do the setup so you can see what I'm doing. But if I'm going too fast, which is probably going to be the case, that you can't follow along, I don't expect anybody to be following along as I do the webinar, but this webinar is being recorded, and it would be a great idea to go back and try and follow along in the recording. But the PDF file and the blog post are going to help you definitely in doing that. So without further ado, let's get started. And the other thing I should say is there is a very important link for everybody, regardless of whether you're HGSI users or EdgeRater users, or let me just advance the slide one moment. Here we go. That's not working. Okay, here we go. Yeah, the shared folder location. If you're an EdgeRater user, regardless of whether you're an HGSI user or not, this will be a very important location for you, because it contains lots of supplementary files that I can push out to this location, and then you can download them onto your computer, and you'll have things like there are new symbol lists in there, and a lot of the things to do with HGSI I put in here too. So I'm going to show you where that is as well, and that's something else to just make a note of. That's it really for the rest of it is going to be this demonstration of how to integrate both products and what you can do. So as you can see on this screen, I have EdgeRater here, and I also have HGSI. Now the first thing that anybody with HGSI wants to do, and this is HGSI for those of you who don't know, is the first thing you have is you have your designer and you have a warehouse view. I'm just going to keep the designer open. Now, as you know, HGSI maintains a database on your local computer of all sorts of information about stocks. Obviously, it contains the price history of stocks and a whole bunch of other information too, and nicely grouped into various groupings. So you've got all these groups in the group database down here. So one of the first things that you want to do is use these groups within EdgeRater. And EdgeRater's concept of a group is really a symbol list. So the goal of the first step of this is to export a group and use it as a symbol list in EdgeRater. And to give you an idea of what our goal is, this is the goal here. We've got the HGSI group, S&P 1500, highlighted down here. And our goal is to actually create a symbol list for use in EdgeRater, and it will appear in EdgeRater on your symbol list panel, and it will be S&P 1500. So we're going to go through that step and all of the steps that are necessary in order to get that to work. So first thing we would do is we're in the designer itself in HGSI. There are two ways, by the way, to export symbols from HGSI. The first way is from the designer, and the second way is from the warehouse. And we'll do the warehouse way second. But from the designer, what you do is you select the group that you're interested in. It could be any of these groups, or it could be your own user group that you've created down here, or any other group that is in the system. Smart groups also qualify. If you highlight the group, then use your File menu and ASCII utilities, export groups as lists, and you end up with this dialog box here where you can export this group. For those of you who know EdgeRater well, you know that EdgeRater uses symbol lists from the folder on your hard drive called symbol lists, which is under the documents folder. Let's quickly show you where that is. So on your hard drive you have your documents folder. Under there's EdgeRater, and then you have a symbol lists folder. And in the symbol lists folder you have a bunch of text files and XLSX files and .lst files and CSV files, and all of these files actually contain symbols that EdgeRater then uses as symbol lists. So our goal with exporting from HGSI is to put a file in that location. When you first install HGSI, the location that it's going to export a list to is not that location. All right, by default it's going somewhere inside your own user profile under a roaming profile and this sort of location here. So we want to change that, and when we do that, next time we try and do the export, it will be set to the correct location. So in order to change it, you just press your browse button, you find your documents, EdgeRater, symbol lists, and you've got it populates the name that it thinks it should use, which is S&P 1500 in this case, which matches the name of the group. And that's good in this case. So I'm going to say save that. I also have to make sure that I have this format set, symbol, comma, name. By default, you'll find that HGSI likes to export them as symbol only, but it's always good to use symbol and then also the name. So I'm going to say exclude any HGSI indexes and exclude subgroups. That's okay. I'm going to press OK. It already found a file there with that name because I already did this when I was testing this earlier today. So I'm going to say yes, overwrite that. Export is complete. And now when I look in that folder location, S&P 1500.txt is right there. What does that look like? The contents of that, basically we export it as symbol, comma, name. So that's exactly what we've got. And so the whole contents of that group are now in this text file. EdgeRater reads that folder location and it provides you access to, so on the left hand side in EdgeRater, in the templates tab, you have the symbol lists panel, and this drop down button here will show you all of the files that exist in that directory. So the one that we just put in there is S&P 1500.txt, which is this one here. Now, when I selected that, my list panel is showing me that I've actually got data downloaded for that list. The reason this is showing me that I have data downloaded for it is because when I was setting up for this webinar, I actually downloaded the data. But when you first export a user group to that location, there will be no price history associated with that data for EdgeRater to use. So EdgeRater has to get the price history from somewhere, and one of the integration points with EdgeRater is it has a data provider which allows extraction of data from the HGSI database, which is local on your computer. So in order to set that up, and this is the probably the first step you should do if you are an HGSI user, once you run EdgeRater, the very first step is to come into the home menu here, click on your data providers, and just make sure you've got a little check mark next to HGSI. And that all that means is that that is now your system-wide default data provider, which means that if you don't make any other choices for symbol lists, they're going to get their data from HGSI. That could be overridden on a per list basis, but the system-wide default is set in here. And I recommend all HGSI users to have that setting checked. If you don't own HGSI software, this will not even be an option in the program. When you bring up this dialog box, you will only see Yahoo, Metastock, and ASCII files. Okay, you click OK on there. That's the only time you ever have to set that. It's going to obviously be remembered next time you run the program. So often we forget, and what actually often happens is when you install the program on a new computer, you forget to make that change for your next installation of EdgeRater. But it's quite important to go and do that. Okay, so that is a list that has been exported. Now, I said that the price history has already been fetched for this list. How would you go about fetching the price history? Well, there's a button here called End of Day Update. And what that does is it goes to, if I press that now, you'll see the bottom of the screen, the progress bar is going to be going along as it extracts 10 years of history, price history, open, high, low, close, and volume from the data provider associated with this list. Okay, when it's finished, then this information will be available to use with any template. But right now we're just building the list up. And after it's done this step here, it will be finished, and this view will then be updated, and it will show us the latest date that we have for data. So you see it's updated, and the latest date we have is 5/2. And the reason it's 5/2 and today is 5/4 is that as of today, the 4th, I mean, I have not updated my HGSI database because this is actually a second computer that I don't use for my everyday work. This is just for this webinar. So the data in HGSI is not current as of today, but it's an interesting point because it just shows you that EdgeRater will only fetch whatever data is available within your HGSI software update. Okay, so it's now got that data and it's now available for use. So that's the first time you do it. Obviously, there's a little bit more work involved in the first time because you have to set a few things up. But then say you wanted to do the same thing again. What you can do is you go to Designer, and maybe now you want the S&P 100. So you click on S&P 100, you click on File, ASCII Utilities, Export Groups as Lists. Everything is set up properly now. That you notice the location that it's exporting to is already set to the EdgeRater symbol lists folder. It's already got the format set correctly. All of the settings have been remembered. So now I just press OK, export complete. I come back over into EdgeRater, and I will see the S&P 100. And if I click on that, now you will see the blank area that I don't have data for that yet. I just press the End of Day Update button, and it will build the data. And now I have data extracted from HGSI that I can now use within EdgeRater. So the point is, I don't have to have HGSI open in order to use that data. It's already gone and extracted that data from HGSI and is now available whenever you run EdgeRater. The other second way of getting data from HGSI is via the warehouse. So if you open up the warehouse, often you're in the warehouse and you're looking at certain views in the HGSI warehouse, and you might be looking at, for instance, maybe you have user groups or smart groups, or you're looking at all securities, and you pull up a particular view. So let's take, I don't know, we can take any view we like here. Haven't even thought about this, a volume breakout view. Okay, so this is HGSI's essentially looking at all of the securities and giving us all of the stocks that are in volume breakout. Now, if you want that over in EdgeRater, what you do from the warehouse is you go File, and you say Save List As, and I wouldn't call it all securities because actually this is it's the all securities group, but we're using the volume breakout field. So I would say volume breakout, BO. And I might give it a date as well, 2016-05-02. If you remember, that data was May the 2nd. And I'll say .lst. I'll say save that. Warehouse successfully saved. You'll notice that I did choose my location. Let me just go through that again. I did set my location to be, again, it has to be Documents, EdgeRater, Symbol Lists. I have to save it into that location. And by default, when you first run HGSI, the location is somewhere else in your roaming profile. So make sure you change that to Documents, EdgeRater, Symbol Lists. Once you've done that, that will be available within the EdgeRater drop down of symbol lists. So we'll come in here, we'll find out volume breakout, we'll click Update, and now we've got all of the data we need for that particular list, and we can run that with any template in EdgeRater. Now I also said that you can override the default data, the system-wide default data provider. So in order to know where the data is coming from for a particular list, if you're ever confused and you think that the data is incorrect in some way, you can press this little pencil icon. It's an edit function for the list. And when you do that, you'll see the symbol list area, and you'll see the data provider for this list. And this time it's showing HGSI. So it means that for sure, whenever I press end of day update, this data is going to come from HGSI. You could override it on a per list basis by using this drop down here, and you could say, oh, instead I want to get my data here from Yahoo. But if you have HGSI, there's no need to go ahead and do that. So I'll leave that set. Okay, so symbol list, that's the very first point of integration, and the most important thing to know about using these two programs together. The next thing is a bit more, it actually does a lot more. The next thing is being able to get a lot of the information from your warehouse into EdgeRater in one go, using some functionality within EdgeRater. So I'll go through an example and I'll explain what I'm doing as I go along. And the very first thing to know is the location I gave you before of files, which was the edgerater.com/shared folder location. If you open that up in your browser, so Firefox or Explorer or Google Chrome, whatever browser you're using, you'll come to this shared folder location. And as I said, this has got all kinds of supplementary files that I put in the cloud, and you can just download these. If you go into the integrations folder and then into HGSI, you'll find a filters, EdgeRater filters, and an EdgeRater warehouse file. And these are the warehouse thing it's a view for the warehouse that's specific for use with EdgeRater. And the filters is just a couple of filters that I find useful within EdgeRater. Click on those, download them to your desktop, save them. You can save them on your desktop. I won't do it because I've saved them already. And then when you're in HGSI, what you can do is first of all load your filter. So come into your warehouse, click on filter. Make sure you have the root filters selected. Click on import. Go to your desktop or wherever you downloaded that file, find that filter and open it up. And what you'll find then is you've got in HGSI a separate EdgeRater filters folder, and the only filter in here is a $1 and 250,000 share filter. Useful to have, and we'll be using that. I use that fairly frequently. So I'm going to close this down. The other thing that was available on that in the cloud was a warehouse view. So how do you import that? You go to choose create view. Make sure you have the root warehouse view selected. Click on import. Click on warehouse views.whs. Warehouse view successfully imported. So now we have a warehouse view folder with EdgeRater views. This has got one very important view in here called the archive view, and then it's got a view which just gives me all stocks that essentially are trading above $1 and 250,000 shares average daily volume. So yeah, so just load those two, the view in and the filter in, and then you're all set up for a lot of the things that that we do. So one of the things that I recommend doing on a daily basis is exporting your warehouse list of all securities. So if you're in the warehouse, let me just close this down, just make that a bit cleaner. I'm assuming everybody can see that. Okay, so on a daily basis, come into the warehouse, select your all securities group, and then go find the warehouse view, archive view. And what you'll see then in the warehouse is you've got however many securities there are, you've got quite a lot of fields that are included in this archive view as we scroll all the way along to the right hand side, including some of the newer fields that were just added in this latest release. Okay, and all securities. And EdgeRater can use this information, but we need to get this information into EdgeRater somehow, and there is a very easy way of doing it. I'm going to go through the process now. You might think that the initial setup process isn't so easy, but it's very easy once you've done it. Once you've done it once, next time everything will be remembered. So the very first thing you do is, from this archive view, is you say, File, Save as HTML. And this is useful to do anyway, regardless of if you have EdgeRater, because what you're doing is you're saving the state of your warehouse and all the fields on a daily basis. And by doing that on a daily basis, you're able to go in and look at values of things like the HGS box value, AD letter rank, ERG values, everything. All of the fields that are in the warehouse, you're able to go and look at them historically. So definitely worth doing, even if you don't own EdgeRater. But if you own EdgeRater, you're going to get a very easy way of doing it and an even better bonus. So I'm going to show you that. The important thing is to save it in a place that you're going to be able to find it again. By default, HGSI is going to save it again in the roaming profile, which we're not going to use. We're going to save it again under Documents, EdgeRater, and this time, well, the first time you run this, you're not going to have a subfolder called HGSI. So very first time you do it, just create yourself, using new folder, a subfolder called HGSI, and then underneath there, create yourself another folder, a subfolder called Warehouse Archive. And you'll notice that I've already copied the file in there, but I'm going to do it again. Save that. Okay, HGSI Warehouse View successfully saved. Okay, that's all we need to do now from HGSI, and in fact, we can close HGSI down completely. All right. Now, when you run your copy of EdgeRater, you'll find that on the right-hand side, you'll scroll down and you'll find a special category here for HGSI. And in that category, there are a bunch of templates that are very useful, and I've worked on with Ian Woodward and Ron Brown. and I put together these templates. The template we're going to use right now is called the Generate Indexes from Warehouse template. And with this template, all you have to do is point it at the file, the HTML file that we just saved from HGSI. And to do that, you just click on Change Settings, you browse for that file, and we know that it's under Documents. Pretty much everything that EdgeRater ever uses is under Documents, EdgeRater, and then subfolders underneath there. So click on HGSI, Warehouse Archive, All Securities, and click on Open. This setting will be remembered once you've set it once. So next time you come in and you run the program and you select this template, it will already have remembered the location, so you don't have to keep setting that each time. And then all you do is you press Run. I'm going to do this, even though it's going to take a couple of minutes to run, but and we'll just see, you'll see the process going along. And it will probably take about 4 minutes for this to run. And I do this every day, and I recommend you do this because there's a lot of benefits that you get from having done this. Now, the first benefit you get is that EdgeRater will convert that HTML file into an Excel spreadsheet. So you can then open that Excel spreadsheet in Excel if you want and search the fields. So if there was a particular day in trading that was interesting to you and you wanted to find out what the values for the box stocks, what box the stock was in, what the letter rank of a stock was, how many stocks were in a certain letter rank, all that sort of thing. You can open up the XLSX file that EdgeRater creates in Excel, and you can find that information. So that's the benefit number one. Benefit number two is that EdgeRater also is able to look at all of the fields in that converted Excel file and generate a bunch of indexes that you can then use within the program. And it also, as a benefit, generates you an all securities symbol list with data. So you see it's still processing here. As I said, it's going to take about 4 minutes, and this may take a little bit longer because it's on my my other computer, so we'll see. But I do want to show this, and I think this is something that not a lot of people who have HGSI and EdgeRater do on a daily basis. I know Jeffrey Scott does this. I know a couple of other people who do it less frequently, but I would recommend doing this every single day. It's actually the first thing I do in the morning is I just run this template. And the real, hang on a sec, got some sirens going on. Okay, so the real benefit is having that history of all of the warehouse fields. EdgeRater has another template that you can use called Warehouse Report, which you'll also find in the HGSI category. I'm not going to select it right now because we're still running this template, but see the Warehouse Report template up here? That is capable of taking any of those historical files that you saved. Maybe there was a particular date in history that you are interested in seeing how the performance has been since then, and you select the file and you say, show me how my ERG stocks have performed since then until a date that you specify. So you specify that date and you specify a future date, and then it will show you a report. And you can, the reports that it produces are actually quite revealing. Sometimes you find that the relative strength, or the group relative strength, is the most important thing in that period of time. Sometimes you find that the AD letter ranks D are way outperforming the A's, which is counterintuitive, but that is often the case. And it just depends on what time you're using to do the test. Okay, but I highly recommend doing this so that you have that information. Now, if you haven't been doing this on a regular basis, what you can do is in my link up here, Remember, I gave you the link in shared folder. If you go to, there's a subfolder of the HGSI location called Warehouse Archive. And if you click on there, you'll find, I've actually just copied up there for you guys all of the files that I've been creating on a daily basis. Okay, and they go back quite a ways. I think I've just, yep, this is still going. So yeah, I've been doing this for a couple of years. So there's one basically file for every day, every trading day. Pretty much, I missed 4 or 5 for various reasons, but pretty much every day for the last couple of years. And you can pick any one of these files and go and see the contents of your warehouse on any of those days. So that's if you haven't been doing this on a regular basis. You can just, this will give you a good start, and then just continue doing it yourself using your, using the template that I just showed you. Okay, so once this is finished, I'm going to show you one of the big benefits of having done this. Obviously, one of the benefits is I just said that you can do warehouse reports. That's a great benefit. Also, it generates for you a list of all securities with data that is extracted from HGSI, and then it creates industry group indexes, 10-year industry group indexes. It creates you 10-year sector indexes, and those indexes are not available from the HGSI price history database. So if you're just connecting to that database and extracting data, which is what a symbol list normally does, you can't get the index information. So EdgeRater builds all that information itself, calculates all those indexes itself. And one of the very cool things that you're able to do is find out seasonality of industry groups. That's just one of the things, but I'm going to show you that thing because it's very interesting. So wouldn't it be nice to know what time of year particular industry groups are in favor? And it does that by looking over the 10-year history of those industry groups and figuring out for the various months which industry group, how many out of those 10 years, how many of those years were up years, how many were down years, and what was the average increase over that period of over the months. So we'll see that in a sec, but that's a very cool thing to do. And another thing that is good with this is you can then use those industry group indexes to do group rotation. And if we have time, I'm going to show you the group rotation template here, and we'll get a nice report so we can see which groups are coming into favor. So I'm just going to let this continue for a little bit more. I'm going to take a look at the questions while we have a moment here and see if we have okay, so Scott Douglas, no, I did not get your email. Sorry. Let's see. Do you need to purchase HGSI separately, or do we have it if we have the latest templates? Oh, so yeah, as you probably gathered from the presentation, HGSI is a separate program, independent from EdgeRater completely. It's just that they work well together, and I highly recommend it as a software program. Okay, great. Do you need to switch to Yahoo for intraday data? Yes. So you don't actually have to switch, Ronald. So the question was, do you need to switch to Yahoo as a data provider to get intraday data? You don't have to do anything to do that. It is automatic in the program. Whenever you do an intraday update, it knows to get the data from Yahoo. So yeah, no changes to make there. Even if you've done your end of day update from HGSI, if you press intraday update, it's going to get the intraday bar from Yahoo. Okay, so this is finished. The report finished running, and it's just given me a synopsis of what it did. So it says the warehouse file name that it used as the input was the file that we took from or exported or saved from HGSI, it's created a warehouse all securities symbol list for me, and it's generated these 4 indexes. And now I can see the results of that by looking in my drop-down list, and I can see I've got warehouse all securities. You'll notice now I've got my data goes from to 5/2/2016. There's a few that don't go as far as that, but that just means the data wasn't available in HGSI for those stocks. So you've got the all securities, that's a good one, and then the warehouse indexes industry. If I click on there, what you will see in your symbol list group now are all of the warehouse industry groups. You see there's 174 of them here, and I now have 10 years of history for those industry groups. And if we take a look quickly at the file system, you'll want to know what happened here. So it's actually created for me a dated XLSX file. Don't worry about if you run the same template twice in the same day, it's going to append an _1 to the next one, and then _2 if you run it 3 times. So the one that it just ran was this one here, May the 4th be with you. I mean May the 4th, 2016, and that is, yeah. So last time I ran it was yesterday, and because I was running a test for this webinar yesterday. So let me delete that one. So this is actually an XLSX file, and if you have Excel, you can open that up. So every day it's going to save a new one of these, and it's going to give it a date stamp, so you know what day the warehouse is for. And that's got all of the fields of your warehouse. Okay. Okay. So now we're going to go and use the indexes industry to do seasonality. And seasonality is, it's not under HGSI, and I'll talk about some of these other templates in the HGSI category in a bit. But now we're able to get lists and indexes into EdgeRater from HGSI. We can use all of the other functionality within EdgeRater too. One of the very cool things is the seasonality template. And if I stick on the monthly seasonality template and I run it against the indexes, or the indexes for the industry groups, and select run, you'll see this will fairly quickly go through and produce a report. And I'll open this up month by month, and we'll see number of up years, number of down years, and the average gain in each of those months. So for instance, we're in May now. You may be interested in what stocks have a good average return, or what groups have a good average return in May. And precious metals and mining has an average return of 17% in May. But the other thing to look at here is the numbers of up years versus down years. Because the average is high, it means that, well, there were 5 up years and 5 down years out of the last 10 in May. But because the average is high, it just means that the up years outweighed the down years. And then we have below that telecom resellers. You see there's an 8%. I'm not sure, can you see this? Is it too scrunched? Let me expand this up a little bit. See if I can get that a bit bigger for you guys. Oh, okay, it was fine. Well, it's a bit bigger now. So you've got, yeah, you can see in May, telecom resellers average 8% gain, 8 up years and 2 down years over the last 10. Okay, managed care 5% up, 8 up years, 2 down years. So I sorted here by average gain. I could also sort by number of up years. So let's find out what has what industry group has the highest number of up years. Turns out telecom resellers, managed care, personal care services, they have 8 and 2. They all have 8 and 2. Healthcare supply 8 and 2, but then the average percentage are getting lower there. So if you're going to look for the next month, you might say June. I'm going to look at my average. Then you've got, this looks like an interesting one, right? Other hardware, 9 up years and 1 down year in June with a 4% average gain. All right, so I find this to be a very interesting thing to run on industry groups. This is doing month by month. You could also do something like monthly 2 months. So monthly 2 months, basically, you'll see what it means, but so this time we're working on 2 month spans. So let's sort by, expand that up a bit. Okay, so now May to June, you've got precious metal mining, 21% average with 5 and 5, and this is May to June, 2 months, 2 month span. So I think you see how that works. If you do the 2 month duration, you're going to get a 2 month span starting at the beginning of each month. And if you do the 3 month duration, obviously you're going to get 3 months, 4 months, 4 months. And then the now template is probably the thing that most people use, because what it does is it doesn't split it by actual months. It just takes today's date and says, show me how these industry groups have performed from today for the next number of weeks. So you've got 2 weeks, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. And if we look here, then we're going to sort by average. We've got basically from tomorrow, and remember the date that I have for data here goes to 5/2, so you want to run this on the most recent data. And you see that you've got an average of, over the next 2 weeks, telecom resellers 3% with 6 up years and 4 down years. Okay, 1 month 7% with 7 up years and 3 down years. Okay, so telecom resellers look like they're coming into, over the next 2 months, into some sort of seasonal pattern. Once you go beyond that, then you do get a higher percentage after 3 months, but then you start dropping after 4 months. So those kinds of things are interesting to look at. And you can do that because of the power of the integration between EdgeRater and HGSI, allowing you to get that industry group information and those indexes into the software. The other cool thing, okay, so there's a question. Thanks, Myrna. So yeah, so there's a question on, I'm looking at the industry groups there. Now the question is, can you see what stocks are in those groups? Okay, good question. So you can't from here say, do any sort of, there's no function here to say, show me what's in the precious metal mining group. But what you can do is you can use the power of the synchronized reports and open up the warehouse report that I previously talked about. So let's take a look at that. So I'm in the report. I can say open another report, and I'm going to look for, so documents, EdgeRater, and I created this warehouse archive XLSX file. Remember I told you that the template generated this for me from the HTML file from HGSI. I can open that up as a separate report. Okay, this is opening inside of EdgeRater. It's not Excel, it's all in EdgeRater. All right. Now, because these two reports are on the same screen or on the same computer, they are automatically linked together. So, and what I was about to say is okay. Let me rewind. Okay. So yeah, so in that case, it's not going to actually link these two together because there are no symbols that are going to match between here and here. So, but what you can do, obviously, once you've got this report opened, is you can then, it's a little bit of a manual process. You'd have to say, sort by industry group, and then take a look down for precious metals and mining, or you could do the filtering capability and say, I'm just going to look for what's in precious metals and mining. So I'm scrolling down here, down to the P's, precious metal mining, click on there. Okay, so then now this report is only precious metals and mining stocks. So that's how you would do it without going back to HGSI. But of course, you have HGSI, so you can just go back to the HGSI and find that too. Make sense? Okay. All right, so moving on. So another thing that is good to do is the group rotation, and that's also good to run on the industry groups. You'll find group rotation in Pro Tools category, and you click on the category and you'll find group rotation template, and by default it's looking at rotations over a 22-day period, averaged over 5 days. So percent change period, 22 days, averaging over 5 days. And I'm going to run it on the industry group indexes. I'm just going to hit run. And that's basically, if you don't know EdgeRater, it's basically the process for running any template. Is you select the template, you select a list to run it on, and you press run. And it goes ahead, does its thing, and then comes up with a report. Comes up with a report. Each report is unique, and this one is particularly unique because it's showing lots of different tabs within this report. So this is, if you open this up in Excel, you see the same thing, but in EdgeRater it's showing you, it's also showing you that information. Now, this has got a dashboard in it. So what we can see now is that ranked number 1 with 100% rank, meaning that it is the top of the list, is mining services over the last 22 days. Okay, then we've got construction related services to steel material suppliers. Okay, you can go down there. That's 1 through 10. Then the bottom 10 are down here, with the worst being department stores. And this is over the last 22 days. So interesting to take a quick glance at this. But then what you should do is take a look at the average rank tab. And this is where you can get some good idea of what's coming into rotation. So clicks on average rank tab. What I'm going to do now is we've got mining services we talked about before. These are the top 10 that we saw before. I'll double click on one of these, open up a chart, and I'll choose my chart. Should be a line-based chart. So now what I'm seeing is mining services. I'm actually seeing the index itself in the top part of the chart. In the lower areas, what I'm actually seeing, the middle of the lower areas, is the average rank. Okay, the average rank, and that shows how the rank has been changing over time, graphically. All right. Then the other two areas, they're not as important, I think, as this average rank area. So the interesting part about this is, if you look at the value here, it's 1 or 100%. So it means that today, this is ranked number 1 over the last 22-day period, but it's been that way since April the 6th. Before that, it was ranked around about well, just before, say March 29th, it was ranked 0. So it was the lowest rank. So mining services had this huge sort of run up here and have been pegged at number 1 for quite a while. What you can do is you can quickly go down through this list and see how the rankings. Take a look. I think this is the most revealing section here, the average rank section. Take a look at how the rankings have been changing. All right, over time, and this is information that's very unique to EdgeRater. You can't see this anywhere else. In HGSI you can't see this. You can see your ranking module, but it doesn't show you this graphically how ranks have been changing over time. So I think this is quite revealing. Now you'll also notice when you go down through the list is that things don't stay ranked number 1 forever. They often drop down and come back again. So I think the trick with looking at group rotation is to find what is actually rotating in, not what is currently in favor. I mean, it's nice to know what's currently in favor because it could stay in favor for a while, but as you scroll down through this list, you'll see that things don't stay in favor for that long. Okay, nothing has stayed at number one for longer. So far, when I've gone down through here, I haven't seen anything at number one for longer than a month. Okay. So what I think you want to do is pick things that are coming into favor. And in order to do that, what you should probably do is come down to the lower areas of the ranking and find things that are ranking and moving up right now. And I think that's a good way to approach this. So just an idea of how to use it. Very, very useful information. Okay. I'm going to look at a couple of questions that came in. Excuse me a sec. Okay, so one of the questions is, see if I can get this, bring this back. And I'm going to take a look at, I think I closed it down already, but if I open the report back again, the monthly report, for instance. Yeah, and I think I sort of explained this, but one of the things you can do with any report is, one of the things you do for any report is you'll always see there's a header row, and they always have these little drop-down arrows, and these are ways that you can do filtering within any report. Click on the filter drop-down, and you have an option then of filtering by, it will figure out what values are in that column, and it will give you the option to filter by them. Or you can do something like a number filter and say, oh, I'm only interested in seeing things that are greater than a particular value. I only want to see things greater than 6. And now my list has been filtered down to that amount. If a column has been filtered, I get this little filter icon on the above the icon there. Okay. Can you do seasonality on individual stocks? Great question, and the answer is that you can. So if you're not using these industry indexes, say instead you're going to use a list of stocks that you've previously exported from somewhere. Let's choose, I have a list of CBOE weeklies. I haven't updated this one for a while, 4/29/2016. But this is just an example. You can obviously update that very quickly. There's only 416 stocks in here. Let's update that right now from HGSI, see how long that takes. You see the bar going along as it's extracting data from HGSI. It's getting all the price history data. Okay, it's done that. It's now building an index to make it super fast for looking up the information. Of course, building an index takes some time, but once the index is built, looking up the information is very, very quick. For some reason, this is taking a bit longer than I thought. Actually, yeah, it's because this computer is not the fastest one. But I would imagine that if I ran this on my main computer here, this would be done in a couple of seconds. So yeah, it's taking a bit longer than I thought. That's okay. I'm going to read some more questions. Right, the address for the archive file is, and this is a good one to remember, here. Shared folder location is, I believe that's what you meant when you're talking about the archive file, James? Okay, great. Steve asks, how up to date am I on GIR reports on OneDrive? Do you have them back a few months daily? Yes, I do, Steve. I actually recently updated them today. So they are up to date as of yesterday, as of the end of April. What is strength scores? and build a trade simulations in EdgeRater. Let's see. So John asks, is it possible to use relative strength scores from HGSI and build a real trade simulations in EdgeRater? So I'm trying to think. Okay, so one of the things you can do is you can use your warehouse report, which will contain relative strength scores. Okay, they're fields within the warehouse. I think E, R, and G. So you'd be talking about the R component, right? The relative strength rank, and then you can use the warehouse report in the software to actually, that will then give you an idea of how that worked. The other thing is that you could go back and look at those old archived files, those old archived warehouse files, and find the relative strength scores that you're interested in, extract those stocks into a symbol list, and then run simulations on those stocks. I think that would be probably a good thing, a good way to go. Okay, so anyway, this finished updating. Let's see. We're going to look at Myrna's question, which was, can you run the seasonality on individual stocks? Yeah, so I've got my list of stocks that have weekly options. This is from CBOE, this list. And I'm just going to hit run on here, historical performance now. And now you've got your list of essentially seasonality of all stocks that have weekly options. So if you're looking for, you're interested in what's coming up in the next month, and you can take a look at some of these. Let me choose candlestick chart, and also I'll choose a layout that I prefer. Let's choose this one. I quite like this one. Okay, so here you are. Sarepta, 45% in the next month, but it only has 2 years worth of history, so really not statistically significant probably. But as you scroll down through this list, now you're looking at individual stocks and how that seasonality is working. Now, these only have 2 years worth of data. So that's the reason that I'm not getting good information here, is I only have 2 years worth of history for that particular symbol list. So this is a good thing to know, is remember I said about the edit button on a symbol list? That's a way you can see what the data provider with the list is, but also gives you an option of saying how much data you want to fetch for a particular list. Okay, I want to fetch 10 years worth of data, not 2 years, whenever I do my end of day update. So right now you can see I've only got data from 2014 to 2016, not that great. So I'm just going to do the snapshot thing again. End of day update. It's going to go out to HGSI, get that data, and then it's going to be useful and usable within EdgeRater. And this time it should be a bit quicker, yeah. So I think the first time this runs, it just is a little bit, takes a little warming up before it runs to speed. So there we go. All right, so now, in theory, I didn't show you that, but let's just take a look at data snapshot. Now we have as much data as is possible, but at most 10 years of data. So some of these don't have 10 years of data, but we've got, if they do, we have 10 years. So now I can run historical performance now. It produces a report, and then in that report I can sort by average number of up years. We still, with Solar City, only have 3 years of data, but that just must be because it's a fairly new stock. If you want to see stocks that have been around for a while, you can actually choose to filter by things that are only showing a 6, 7, or 8 in the up column. And then you can sort by the things that are the highest. So Herbalife, 7 and 3, 10% over the next 1 month. And if you look at a chart, that's where it is today. So yes, you can do it for individual stocks. That's actually a very powerful thing to do. One of the most powerful things I think you can do is, and this isn't really to do with HGSI integration, but is to use the Dave McMullen template, which looks for the 8-21 moving average cross and good upcoming seasonality. So yeah, so that's really powerful. Okay, so we're running out of time, just about at the end of the webinar, but I think I covered what I wanted to cover in terms of like getting you set up. The PDF file that you should find is a handout from this webinar. If you look for your GoToWebinar handouts panel, you'll find a PDF, and that contains all of the instructions on how to set everything up properly. This video it will be sent to you, by the way. I'm recording this, and the recording will be sent to you because you registered for this webinar. It will be on GoToWebinar recording. And right, so you've got information about how to set everything up. I recommend going ahead and just getting that all set up. You do that one time, and then the next time you run either program, it's all set and ready to go. So I've given you a way of getting symbol lists from HGSI into EdgeRater, two methods, either designer or from the warehouse. I've given you the filters and the warehouse views that I use. There's only a couple of those, but I find them very useful. The warehouse view that I gave you is important to use rather than using the one that's built into HGSI, because the one that's built into HGSI actually filters down some of the stocks. And the one I put in there, it has a no filter attached to it, which means there's no filtering going on. It's just using all securities. And that, the reason is we want all the information possible in that archive file because we might want to find more information in the future. Okay. And yeah, so I've shown you how to update lists within EdgeRater, talked about default data providers, how to use the archive view, and then once you've got that information, some of the cool things that you can do within EdgeRater. And I haven't even gone into the specific templates for HGSI, which we can do another time, but some of the other templates that I built working very closely with Ian and Ron are in here too, and I think that would be a good topic for next time. Now that you've got the basics out of the way and what to do on a daily basis, these things will be very useful. Okay, let's see. Oh, great, thanks, Mira. So the 8-21 cross, it's actually an 8-20 cross, Steve, but you can change it to be an 8-21 cross. It's in it's under Hot Topics. So if we go in Hot Topics, you'll find DM stands for Dave McMullen, moving average cross with upcoming probability. You can change the period. Dave uses 8 and 20, but you can change to 8-21 if you wish. Okay, very good. Okay, guys. All right, well, thank you. Thank you very much for coming. We'll see you next time. I'll send you the link to the recording. And yeah, thanks a lot. Bye-bye.